John Shields has walked and continues to walk an unusual path. He's being called by the Catholic Church, by the labor movement, the wild, and the cosmos. It may surprise you to know that the former president of the BC Government and In-Service Employees Union, the man who went head-to-head with Premier Bill Vander Zalm, continues to search out adventure on the cutting edge of life. His interesting journey so far is wrapped in an autobiographical book called The Priest Who Left His Religion. It is my pleasure to welcome John Shields to Studio 4 to tell us more.
Fanny, it's a delight to be here with you.
So far, your journey, not a dull one.
For sure. I couldn't have predicted it looking forward. I can only look at it going backward. Wow.
The same for all of us.
Yeah,
exactly. Indeed. Where we thought we were going, we didn't go.
Didn't get there.
But your family, the prophecy was you would be the first American Pope or something like that, born in New York City.
My grandfather was Irish, born in Ireland, came to the United States. And when my mother brought me home, my grandfather picked me up, lifted me in his arms, and said, "This is going to be the first American Pope." Now, talk about a prophecy or a stamp. The rest of the family said, "Your grandfather said that. It's going to happen that way."
But you did go down the path.
I did. I was a pious little kid.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, I took the whole thing in, and the prospect of becoming close to God and doing something of service really called to me, and that's the journey that I started on. Went into the Paulist Fathers, spent 12 years in the community, studying, learning to be a priest. And as it happened, the Vatican Council was called by Pope John in the time that I was in the seminary, and my teachers threw away the old dogmatic textbooks and said, "You're going to learn from the documents of the Vatican Council." So. You know, I didn't learn the old stuff.
Okay, so you learned the new stuff.
I learned the new
with
stuff.
The first Pope John.
Yes, John the 23rd.
Until Vatican II.
Well, that was
when things changed.
That's it.
But take me back to the day you became a priest, the day you were ordained. Your fears, your thoughts. Was it right for you?
It was awesome. It was after all of those years of preparation, the thought of being marked by the church, to be of service, to hold the bread and make it into the body of Christ, all of that, it just filled me with a sense of being in the awe of the mystery of the...
And what about that celibacy thing?
Well, it was less important at that time. It was a trade-off. If you want to do this, you've got to do that,
right.
And so it wasn't the strong. I mean, I came to terms with that, I should say.
Anybody tried to talk you out of it? An aunt, an uncle, a friend?
My dad, actually. My dad thought, this is too much of a sacrifice. You're going to give up family and children, and you don't know what you're giving up. And take some time and think about it. They sent me. My dad gave me a trip to Europe before I entered this more serious part of the seminary. He encouraged me to go explore life, So he really did want me to have my eyes open.
Right. So a deep calling.
Yes.
And a satisfying calling, and I know you taught about church reform and new theological insight, all of that.
Yes.
And then what changed for you?
One of the things that happened with all of this impetus from Vatican Council was an understanding of the Bible that you had to understand the intention of the author. And they knew that the intention of the authors of Genesis wasn't to write history, but to tell about, to tell the Israelites why they should leave Babylon and go home. And the realization was that there was no such real people as Adam and Eve. That it was they were figures in a teaching story. And when they came to that awareness, most of the scholars right across the religious spectrum held that. then there could not have been an original sin.
So that we are not born sinners. All humans are not born corrupt. We're born optimistic.
Absolutely, and that was the wonderful opportunity that was sitting in front of the church to drop that emphasis on sin and corruption, and also to give up the power over people that was held in that position. And go back to a more loving message, that we're born to evolve into the fullness of who we are. And the Pope, who followed John the 23rd after the Vatican Council, said, I'm not going there.
Was
and
that
neither
Paul
is the
the
church.
Sixth?
Paul the Sixth.
Paul the Sixth.
Paul VI said, I don't want to upset the piety of my flock.
I mean, all these years we've told you this, and we couldn't have been wrong, alas.
And for the Catholic Church to admit that they were wrong after they declared themselves infallible was a big stumbling block. Anyway, so he denied, covered up, and then for the people who were teachers of theology in that period of time, most of us lost our jobs. It was a choice of either.
Because you were the reformers.
Yeah, we were the reformers. And anyway, the disillusionment that, if you're committing to following something that you believe to be true and right, and then you know that what you've been believing all these years is not true and not right, you want to make the next step and saying, okay, let's go to where it's right. And the Pope wouldn't do that, and I had to stand in my own integrity, and I could not stay in the clergy. And once I stepped out of the clergy, everything else went. Everything, all the belief structure. It just turned to sand. It just absolutely.
Really? So you shed the shackles of religious dogma like that?
Yes. Yes, it was the disillusionment that at the heart of the church was a lie.
So now you're saying, who am I? What is it all about? I mean, my sense is that all religions of the world are not contradictory but supplementary. It's just that every religion seems to have a God-man and symbols and form and all of that. And then once they get that, they say, but we're right.
Yes.
You're wrong, we're right. Be it Buddha, be it Muhammad, be it Jesus. This is the only way.
Yes. And it's interesting that all of those religions came to fruition in a period when the worldview was the flat earth, the dome over the top of the earth. All they had to make sense of the world were their senses. It's a pre-scientific worldview. And in that worldview, they needed an interventionist God. The only explanation for all of this was God did it. And God continues to do it every day. So, and that leads into an awful conundrum that if the baby dies, it's God's will. I had a little cousin who died of polio, and the priest came in and said, it's God's will that this boy died. I thought, what kind of a God makes it his will to have this little child die?
Right.
So that kind of monstrous divinity that wrestles with all of that, you don't need that in the new understanding of the cosmos. So that's a freeing process for me.
Well, this new understanding of the cosmos is extremely interesting. Deepak Chopra, as you know, has just written a book with a physicist about science and spirituality coming together, and many others are on that path. But before we go there, take me to the Union. So an ex-priest, are you considered ex-priest? You're no longer.
I just walked
Goodbye.
away. Well,
don't you have to go to Rome and say, excuse me, I'm leaving?
I didn't go. I didn't go to Rome. I just left.
Really?
Opened the door, walked out, gone.
That was it.
So I guess.
And how much money did you have in your pocket?
$30. I earned $30 a month as a Paulist priest, and that's all I had.
$30.
I had no saving. I had no assets. I didn't even own a car. My dad had to give me a car to get me from Texas, where I was, to home.
Were they disappointed in you, the parents, because you supposed to be the first American Pope, and now you've left it all?
My mother was devastated because I was the apple of her eye and the center of her sense. Only child. And she was devout and did all the pious things in the church, and she was heartbroken.
And then you came to British Columbia, or how did that happen?
Well, my first assignment as a Paulist was to the Catholic Center here in Vancouver. And my role was to teach theology to people in the community. So in addition to doing my job, I fell in love with BC, I fell in love with Western Canada, and if I had to live anywhere, I was coming back to the west coast of Canada.
Sure. And you caused a stir here, as you recall, because then Premier Bill Vandershem trying to privatize the public sector. You were leading the union. What did you learn about you during those years?
Well, I took on Bill as a personal cause. I was not going to stand by idly and see the public interest dismantled. So we went head to toe over. I spent a year traveling the province, talking to chambers of commerce, talking about the consequences of privatization to the economies of local communities. Anyway, at the end of that period of time, there was a set of negotiations that I led. I had, I was intolerant of people who weren't keeping pace with me in my own union. It was my own personal cause. And at the end, I came away with a collective agreement that virtually made it very difficult for the province to privatize things at that stage. My colleagues, who I thought, I'm going to show you this great collective agreement.
I'm the hero.
Yeah, I'm the hero. And they were disappointed and grouchy. And they said, well, you did it all by yourself. You didn't include us. We know you as the leader that pulled people together. You did this all by yourself. We're not all that sure we want to be with you on this one. So I went into a convention to be reelected for the reelection as president of the union. And it was one of my teammates ran against me. I only won the election by 12 votes, and I was just devastated. Went home, depressed, couldn't figure out what had gone wrong. Had a dream. My grandmother, my storyteller, appeared to me and said, pay attention to your heroes. And so I went through a list of all the people I admired, nothing registered. I thought, well, I got to go back earlier. So I went to my early stories, and the Lone Ranger story popped into, and the lone hero.
The archetype, the Lone Ranger.
Yeah, rides the white horse into town, hi-ho silver.
I'll save you all.
Fires the silver bullets and then leaves, solves the problem, and then leaves to the cheers of the crowd. And I thought, you stupid guy.
and nobody liked you. And you say to the union, look, I've saved your jobs, I've saved the public sector, or at least attempted to. And none of you are grateful. So how did you change?
Well, I realized that I had internalized the lone hero myth. And as soon as Bill announced that he was going to privatize the public sector, I was triggered into the myth, and everything I heard, everything through that story. So I said, if I made up that, if I internalized that story, maybe I need a new story. And so I went through as many heroes or many myths as I could think of. And I ultimately settled on King Arthur and the Round Table. And
good pick.
It was a perfect pick for the role that I was in. And so instead of taking it on myself, I was the animator who encouraged other people to do their thing and to the best of their
Sure, because as you know, great leaders surround themselves with great people.
Absolutely.
And they allow those people to
be better than they are.
Be better than they are, and they understand their weaknesses. As Einstein said, an unexamined life is not worth living, and you have been examining for a long time. We'll take a break and come back and get you out of the union movement and into your new... Is it cosmology, spirituality?
Well, both.
It's a big step.
It's both, yeah.
John Shields, our guest, the priest who left his religion in pursuit of cosmic spirituality.